Good morning, friends. How are you? It's kind of gloomy outside, but you know what? It's bright in here, and we're going to have some fun today. Hi, I'm Anna Walker, otherwise known as FELTIt, and usually you see me working with things like felt and fiber, but for the last several weeks and for the next few weeks, I'm coming to you every day, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning Central Time, and I'm bringing you an art lesson with Anna. I thought during this time when things are very, very strange for all of us, that it would be good for us to have an internet create date. So today's project, let me pick it up here, we're going to make some string ornaments. And I'm going to show you the process for making these, and then I'm going to let you have to it. Now, it's going to be a messy process today, so make sure that you have your surface covered with something, and wear an apron like I am. Make sure you have some wipes on hand, or that you can go to the sink and wash your hands really, really well, because this is going to get a little messy, and just want to prepare you for that. But without further ado, let's get to our project, okay? So for today's internet create date, you need to cover your surface. My surface is covered with a non-stick mat, and this makes it possible for me to just build my ornament right here on this surface, and then I can let it sit here until it's dry. You're going to need a small bowl, and I have used a baggie to sit inside the bowl so that the bowl won't have to be washed afterward, and I can just gather up the leftover glue and I can take it to the trash. Excuse me. I am going to use some white glue. I'm using Mod Podge, which is just like your school glue. Your school glue will be fine. If you're using a thicker glue, like a tacky glue, you might have to water it down just a little bit with water. I'm going to use a popsicle stick to do a lot of my dirty work here in the glue bowl. I'm going to need some yarn, and I'm going to need a pair of scissors to cut the yarn, and I'm going to use this bird-shaped cookie cutter to create our ornament. Now, the one I made for our example is just a free form. This is just a scribble ornament. That's what I like to call it. Kind of looks like my apron a little bit. You can definitely just do a scribble ornament if you want to. That's totally up to you. But I'm going to put one inside this bird shape, and we're going to make a bird shape. You'll also want to have maybe a piece of parchment paper or waxed paper. And you could even use tin foil, although the tin foil is not going to be the best surface to use. What we're going to use the parchment paper and the tin foil for is just to sort of flatten out our project after we've got all the string on there. So first we need to pour a little bit of the glue into our bowl that's got a nice Ziploc bag in it. I just use a sandwich size on this 1 cup bowl, and we don't need a lot. I mean, that's just a very little bit. And now what we need to do, I'm going to move the cookie cutter out of the way and bring this a little closer here. I am going to take a long piece of string. This is just a nice lightweight yarn, and I am going to start pushing it into the glue with the popsicle stick. Now I'm doing this just like stringing it in, like there's an order to it. Just makes it easier to pull the strings out of the glue when we need to set them down inside our cookie cutter or down as a scribble. That way we'll have an end that we know is the end, and we're not going to pull up right in the middle of the globby glue yarn, okay? Now you can use any yarn or string that you've got on hand for this. You might even be able to use ribbon, though I've not tried this project with ribbon before. For me, I've always found that string or yarn works a little better because you have a little bit more control over where that's going to go. And you see I just keep feeding it a little bit at a time here. Now remember, I told you we were going to get messy today, so if you don't like to get your hands messy and you have a pair of plastic gloves, you could certainly wear those on your hands. If you don't have those, you could even put a baggie over your hand while we strip this glue off when we get ready to lay it down. Okay, so I'm at the end of my yarn here. I want to keep a little bit of it out of the glue. I'm going to be able to use my popsicle stick to get the end nice and coated with the glue, but I want to be able to pull it out without having to worry about getting my hands too terribly dirty. I don't want to fish it out. Okay, so let's see how I can do this. I'm going to put the ornament right here. Now, you could take a little bit of petroleum jelly, or you could even spray it with maybe some cooking spray on the inside of the cookie cutter if you're using it. But in any case, you're going to want to make sure that your cookie cutter is either for crafts only or that it gets a good scrubbing when you're done with it. I have cookie cutters that are crafts only for me. Now, I want to show you how I'm going to start pulling the glue string out of here. And I'm just going to take, if it'll work, I'm going to take and just let my popsicle stick get some of that glue off of the string as I pull it out. And now I'm going to just dump it right in the middle of my ornament. And here's where our fingers are going to get a little messy. We're going to pull it up a little bit at a time and just put it right down in there. And it might jump out like mine just did. If it's too much to hold on to the popsicle stick, you can certainly just take your hands and get both sets of fingers wet and just squeeze off a lot of the glue and move your yarn all over the place inside your ornament. I'm going to try and keep all of the yarn inside the bowl. And our yarn's not staying down, and that's okay. We'll get it pushed down here in just a second. We do want the glue to still be right there in the yarn, because that's what's going to hold our ornament into place when we get it dried. Having the glue there is what helps it hold its position and helps it hold its shape. So I'm just trying to make sure that I get yarn everywhere in here. And if we need to add another string of yarn, we can certainly do that if we don't think we've got enough coverage here. And I'm just moving it to make sure I'm in all the nooks and crannies. We want it to just sort of pile up on each other. And we're right here at the end. I'm going to grab my wipe and wipe off my fingers there and wipe off my fingers here. And now I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm just going to kind of move the strings around so that they go to all of the edges of the cookie cutter here. And I want to make sure that the strings overlap each other so that they've got a lot of different connections there, because those connections are what help it be a little strong. And I think I'm going to get another string so that I can do this top part here. The bottom part is nicely filled out, and I think we've got enough overlap with our strings here to make the bottom part of the bird's body, but I want to get another string in here so that we can get a little bit better coverage on that top part. So I'm going to take another piece of string, not quite as long as the first one. I'm going to trim it off, move that out of the way. We're going to feed the string into the glue again. And we're just feeding it in a little bit at a time, making sure that the string gets really well coated with the glue. And just a little bit more, and then we can do the top part of the bird's body. Now you can use any cookie cutter that you want. I've got old plastic ones that I use for crafting. You could use a metal-shaped cookie cutter. Obviously, it needs to be an outline because we need to have the center open so that we can feed the string into there. And here we are at the end of our string. I want to leave myself just a little bit at the top. Go down a little bit more. Okay, and now I'm going to pull it out again. I'm going to pull it out using both fingers like I did before. Only this time I'm going to be a little more deliberate about getting the top part. Oh, I got it on my mat, but that's okay because it's a non-stick mat and that's what it's designed for. Make sure you hold your fingers over the bowl. I was getting a little loosey-goosey with where I was having my fingers to take off the excess glue, and that's why I got some drips on my mat. But it's okay, that's why we've got the mat there, right? Get that out of the way. Let's do a little bit more up here. And we just want to wiggle and squiggle it a little bit. Just want to make sure we've got some pretty shapes in there. And all right, we're at the end, so I want to make sure that all of this gets up here in the head portion. I take my wipe. I'm going to wipe my fingers off. And then I'm going to take my stick and I'm just going to push the glued yarn down into the cookie cutter. And if I find that some areas seem to be a little dry, I can add little dots of glue. We're not going to see them when this dries. It's going to dry pretty much clear. But sometimes we need just a touch more glue to sort of hold the different strings together. And it works nice to have this popsicle stick here so that you can just sort of tap that extra glue in where it needs to be. I'll put just a little bit more here in the head. Get right in there with the beak. And then just a little bit more down here in the lower part of the body. Just enough. We're not pouring it on. We're just putting little dots in and pressing those strings together a little bit. Okay, so now we have our ornament ready to go. And what I'm going to do is just lift up the cookie cutter. I'm going to have my string handy in case I need it. That's ready to go. Just push this down. Use a little bit of this glue right here to get those edges. And there we have our beautiful bird shape. Now we can come in with our fingers. We can pinch that beak a little tighter if we want to. Make sure we've got our wipes handy. I'm going to wipe off this little mess here. And now what I want to do is I just want to press down with the piece of parchment paper. And that's going to help push those strings together. I'm going to lift this up. Gotta have my popsicle stick handy. Now you can press this down and let it stay on top of your ornament until it dries. It will peel off a lot easier when it's dry than what it's doing right now when it's wet. But I wanted to show you how our ornament looks here before it gets started drying. So now what we have to do is just let it dry. Now we can hurry up that process. If you've got a parent handy and they give you permission to do this or they help you do this, you can use something like a heat gun. Heat gun is kind of like a crafter's hair dryer, only instead of blowing air, it blows heat. And you can use this. You always want to wiggle a heat gun around, but you can use this to help start the drying process a little faster. You can also use a hair dryer if you want to, but be careful with the hair dryer because it does blow air, and so you don't want to move your strings around too much. But right now it's really all about just letting our ornament dry, and I'll be able to show you tomorrow how our bird ornament looks. But we're basically going to have an item like this. It's going to be very delicate, very, very delicate, as delicate as the yarn or the string we use for it. And then we'll be able to get a piece of the string and tie it on so that we can then hang that ornament up in a window. We can hang it in our bedroom. We can make it into a card by putting this as a decoration on a card. and just use a little bit of glue to just hold it on the top of the card. And then this could be a lovely card that you send to mom or grandma or auntie on Mother's Day coming up. Or maybe there's someone's birthday that's coming up that's special. But a lot of little fiddly work, and then we have to let it dry for a few hours. It's probably going to take until tonight or maybe even tomorrow before it's completely dry. So you want to give yourself time to just let that dry, check it out during the day. It'll be able to lift off of your nonstick surface or lift off of your parchment paper. If you have any trouble, if you notice that you're able to start peeling it off, if you're very, very careful, you can peel it completely off while it's still damp, and then set it aside, maybe in a sunny window, and let it continue to dry completely overnight so that your ornament will hold its shape and be something that you can share. So tomorrow, quick craft today, quick art project today. Tomorrow, we're making pom-pom flowers, and I hope that you'll come join me for that. If you've got any questions about what I do with felting, you can certainly go to stabthingsintoexistence.com, and I'll be happy to show you all about it there. If you want to make sure that you get the supply list for next week's projects this weekend, you need to go to stabthingsintoexistence.com and leave your email there. And that way you'll get that email of the supplies that you're going to need for Monday through Friday projects next week. So until tomorrow and our pom-poms, I'll see you then. Have a good day. Bye.